Hi everyone, James here from F9 Audio and the Freemasons, and welcome to Pure 909. We think we've created some of the best 909 stem sets out there, and we've also cut them all up into drum kits that are available for most of the major DAWs. Let's get cracking and I'll show you how we can use these. Going to open one of the folders. This is 122 BPM and the stem set is called Warehouse. Now these are the audio stems. They all start at the same bar and they are all the same tempo, so it's dead easy to drop into any DAW. If you use Ableton, you'll be used to the ASD files that get generated as Ableton actually looks at the audio and works out where the hit points are. We've put these in separate folders, so for any users of any other DAWs, they're not in the way. But for Ableton, just grab them and put them into the same folder or the same area as the actual WAV stems. Then when you come to load them into Ableton, all of the timing information will be inbuilt as well. Okay, so here we are in Ableton and all of the stems are here. I've navigated to the correct folder. Going to set our master tempo as we have to 122, which is the original tempo of the stem set. And this icon down here, which is a kind of WAV file icon with a little tick next to it, means that the ASD files for Ableton are being read correctly. So I'm going to pick them up, drag them onto the arrange, and as you can see, Ableton defaults by trying to put them all on the same track. That's no good for us. We want them all starting on different tracks at the same position. So to do that, you can toggle it by hitting the Apple key on a Mac, or I think it's Control on a PC, and then it will allow you to drop everything onto different tracks all starting from the same bar. Going to move the kick to the top and the clap just momentarily, and playback. Now, we've supplied these quite loud. We consider this to be almost commercially acceptable level. In other words, people would actually say it's a bit too quiet if we did them any lower. They are not sausaged. They are not stupidly mastered. They are in great shape. But what I am going to do is just select them all, come down to the clip inspector here, and I'm going to drop them all by -6. Good working practice, and it just gives us quite a bit of headroom on the master. And while we're here, I'm just going to do a very simple split in the audio files here, because we've got three main sections. These are not just static 4 or 8 bar loops. They're kind of evolving audio that have drops and fills like this. So we've kind of got three main sections there, and we've done this in pretty much all the stem sets. So I'm just going to put a cut there, and now I'm going to clear out some of the bits that aren't being used. Not everything's playing in every stem at any one time, and that just gives us a little clearer picture of what's actually happening with the audio, so that when we actually come to do a quick little arrange, it's going to be nice and easy. Okay, so that's a bit of basic setup. Now let's just start moving things about. I'm going to create another little breakdown section here. And first of all, first thing I want to do is duplicate that entire time section. And I tell you what, for this breakdown, we'll copy the clap across. We'll take one of the kick drums. I tell you what, I might double up that tom part that comes in. So that's... There we go. So we've kind of got the beginnings of an arrangement here, and this is the beauty of this system. It just allows you to dive in and start creating. Look, you saw there in seconds we were able to come up with the beginnings of an arrangement for a tune. And you can do this in any one of the DAWs. I'm literally just moving the audio backwards and forwards. And because it's pre-mixed, there's absolutely no effects on there. You've got no latency to deal with. And if you're good on your DAW and nice and quick, you can actually work at speed. And you saw there, I was actually able to create parts of the arrangement whilst it was playing other bits back. As I say, this is because there's no processing going on to actually generate sound of this quality. Okay, so that's great, but now let's add some customization. I'm going to navigate to the Master Pure 909 folder and open up the Drum Hits and Kits folder within it. And inside that, you've got the Pure 909 sampler format. Now, these contain all of the different patches for the different sampler formats that we're supporting. They include ESX24 for Logic, Presence XT for Studio One, NNXT for Reason, and Contact. We've actually got a custom GUI for Contact as well with some great little controls on there. And also SF, I'm just going to call it SVZ for the moment. I've got no idea who came up with that acronym. It's nonsense. This is really useful if you're using any of the free samplers that are on the front cover of magazines, or I think actually Plugin Boutique and Synapse Audio released a free sampler in 32-bit form for Mac and 64-bit for Windows called Sampler, and that will read FSZ perfectly. But for Ableton, come up to the Ableton Racks folder because we've got a completely different set. Now, a lot of people in Ableton would use drum racks for drums. Now, I kind of veer away from that when there's large quantities of drums. The main reason being is that it uses an instance of Simpler for every sample you're using within the rack. Now, if you've got about 5 or 6 drum racks active with different sounds firing off and say 40 samples of each, that's an awful lot of instances of Simpler, and one of the reasons your project can take a long time to load and actually be quite sluggish. So what we tend to do, I much prefer having drum menus. So in other words, a whole series of different sounds set across a keyboard that I can fire in. And that means we can use one instance of Simpler to control them all and get some tasty little functionality out of it. So let me pull the Pure 909 claps menu down. I'm just going to drop the level to the same level as the drums. And let's have a playthrough. You'll hear a great deal of variation between the different sounds as they've gone through the different analog processes that we used in recording, and also some of the different ambience we've created. Now, so some of the basic controls on the rack. Pitch is self-explanatory. And this is obviously changing the entire set as well. FM. Bit crazy on claps, can be great on the toms and even the kick drums. Bitfold uses the saturation circuit within Simpler and Sampler to add a kind of 4-bit sine wave crushing to the sound. Great for sound design. That in tandem with some low-pass filtering or high-pass filtering is just wonderful to play with. Compressor. And a nice kind of drum-specific reverb. Now, I'm just going to touch a few of the controls, and then we'll start to add some parts in. So let me just quickly quantize that. And I think we'll apply a groove. We've got MPC about 56 is always a good start. This is why I love drum menus as opposed to a whole series of actual drum kits sometimes. It just allows you to pick out a whole variety of sounds of one instrument. And you can really start great customization simply by using these kits. Now, we have actually supplied the drum kits for all of the different sets as well. Let me just show you that. That's the kit from the Capricorn stem set. But we have actually done these as drum racks as well, because I know that some people do like them. So there we go, just a few minutes in and we've already got the basis of a production. Now, one thing whilst we're in live, the reason the ASD files are important and you want to have them added before you actually put them into your arrangement is that we've already set up the warping for you. So let's have a look at the kick drum. It's set to beats mode, transient, and most importantly, it's got this single arrow on the transient loop mode, which means you can do tempo speed ups and slow downs without getting too many artifacts. So we're at 122 here. Let's knock this up to 128 and see what it sounds like. Now, that is pretty impressive to be able to stretch from 128 to 74 BPM without seeing too many artifacts. Okay, so I'm in Logic Pro X, and let's do a similar thing. Let's drag one of the stem sets in. I'm going to go for the 125 BPM repunk, so I'm going to set Logic's tempo to 125. Open the folder, there's the stems. Obviously, the ASD files have nothing to do with Logic, so we're just going to leave them where they are. We're going to create new tracks for it, and it will then, nice and quickly, import all of the audio. Okay, here it all is. It's just doing its file overviews. By the way, one quick tip. If you don't see these file overviews, if you click on this icon here, you've got a little slider that doesn't actually change the level of the audio, just changes the kind of waveform zoom, if you like, so you can see more of what's going on. Now, again, these are supplied at quite loud level, so I'm going to select them all, come over to the region box, and I'm actually going to change the gain of these to -6. Let's just line them all up against a decent bar, and we can now get rid of our browser. So let me play through certain parts of this. Now, if you don't like the sound of some of the tonal things or the distorted parts that we've got in there, you can literally just get rid of them. So I'm going to come down to the filthy tom. Let's just knock that out for the moment. It does have a pitch to it, so it might get in the way for certain productions. And you'll hear in this one, we all got an almost 808 kind of hat sound out using some of the analog filters that we passed this through as it was going in. Now, Logic's great at chopping stuff up, so let's just select our scissor tool as the B tool, and then I'll start to put some cuts in for the different sections. Then you can just arrange, as we showed you earlier on in the Ableton video, you can do what you want with it. Now, if you want some of the tasty time stretch stuff, in other words, the ability to change the tempo of these, this is how you do it. First of all, come to Preferences and make sure in the Advanced tools that you have everything turned on. If you don't have these turned on, you won't be able to see the flexing tool that I'm just about to instigate. So I'm going to come and turn on Flex here. That's this icon. And you'll see that all of the tracks suddenly get a bit wider, and it's asking us to select the type of warping that we want to do. For anything that's rhythmical like this, go for... actually, I would always say try slicing first and see what happens. That makes the whole thing react a little bit like Recycle, and in a similar way to that we saw Ableton behave. Rhythmical is another one to try if you're not getting exactly the right results, and it all depends the tempo change that you're making. Now, this will take a while to do all of the calculations, but there we go. We're kind of already set up. So I can now turn this to 128. 140. Or even bring it down to, say, let's try 110. So that's how you can get a similar functionality to as we saw on Ableton. Now, if you don't want to change the tempo, I would suggest turning all of the flexing actually off whilst you're working. Now, let's start to add some sounds. Same process. We're just going to pull up an ESX24. And I've actually already pre-installed the kit, so let's go and have a look. There's a full PDF manual within this that shows you how to do all of this as well. Going to go to the ESX24 folder, sound menus, and let's have a look. Let's have a look at the claps again. Let's add a bit of that in. Now, I'm going to quantize that part that we just put in using a custom groove. Now, if you don't have the grooves of the Akai MPCs or Machine in your system, we do actually have this as a free download on F9 Audio. Okay, so here we are in Studio One startup screen. I'm going to create a new song. We're going to call it Pure 909 Test. And I'm going to make sure one checkbox is ticked on. Stretch audio files to song tempo. Now I'm going to take a 124 BPM stem set and have it run at 126. We've actually encoded all of the WAV files using Studio One's metadata. Now this won't affect any other DAW user, but it means we can drag these onto pages and they will conform to tempo. So let's just OK that. Let's go to the files. Here's the 124 BPM stem set for Dirty Snare. I'm going to drag them up, put them on the screen, and that's it. That's all you have to do. These are now playing back perfectly in time at the new tempo. And if we come up to the information tab here, you'll see that the tracks have automatically defaulted to time stretch and drums. And everything's kind of ready to go. Now I'm just going to quickly select everything, pull up the mix quickly and just drop the fader levels a bit so that we're not overheating things. Now, to add the Presence XT instruments, once again, navigate to the Drum Hits and Kits folder, and inside that, you'll find the sampler patches. There's Presence XT, there's the kits and the sound menu. So you've got the kits for all of the different stem sets and the actual sets of different sounds. So let's pull up the hats. There's Presence XT. You're good to go. Okay, now the same thing in Reason, and Reason always has a real-time time stretch engine running in the background, and many of you know we've actually used this to great effect on remixes to do vocal time stretching, because I think it's actually quite incredible considering that it just comes almost free with the system and it's running at all times. So we're going to take the 118 BPM stem set called Paris and drop that onto the arrange page. Now I'm going to change the tempo to 118 to its original. This is really important with Reason because this writes in the tempo information onto the audio files that you're bringing in. It's going to quickly do a bit of work, and there we go. You're straight up and running. And as I said, it's running at all times, so I can change the tempo here to 124. To 140, we can even go it's got a nice grainy quality to it when you actually start to drop stuff. Great for individual sounds. And once again, the kits, so we're going to navigate to the sampler patches. Let's just move this across. NNXT, we want the sound menus, just literally drop them straight into the rack. You can pull in as many as you want and have all the fun that comes with Reason for this. So thanks for watching this walkthrough of Pure 909 from F9 Audio. If you listen to the stock 909 sounds that come with your DAW and then listen to the audio demos of this and download the free taster packs that are available, I'm sure you'll appreciate how much work's gone into creating this stem set of 909 sounds ready for 21st century productions. Those of you that will have seen my point blank videos recently know the kind of pedigree of machines that I've been using here, and you'll also know the hardware that's available in the studio, and we think it's really paid dividends in making this a standout product. As always, keep in touch over social media and let us know how you're using the F9 products. We're always keen to hear what everyone's producing out there. Now, 2016 has been a very weird year for world politics. So every now and again we need a slogan, and here's a perfect one for the dance community. It comes from the English Disco Lovers. And that's a Brighton organisation that when there was a far-right march down here threw glitter over the top of them. Don't hate, gyrate.